As the history of Israel goes on, there are a few bright spots with kings who followed the Lord faithfully. But apart from those few, it just seems to get worse and worse. But as they get more and more rebellious, God seems to become more and more determined to reveal himself to his people so that they will return to him and to trust him as their God. In today's reading from 1 Kings 14 to 18, we begin with King Jeroboam, thinking that somehow he can deceive God by sending his wife in disguise to a prophet to inquire from him about their son who is sick. Then we see King Rehoboam, who's the son of King Solomon, who built the temple of God, and now Rehoboam's building altars to idols and for other gods and leading Judah away from the Lord. After he died, his son Abijam becomes king, and it says he walked in all the sins that his father did. But God was faithful, because he had made a promise to David, and because of that, Abijam, who was in the line of David, stayed on the throne, and his son Asa became king when he died. And Asa was one of those few bright spots in Israel's history. He reigned for 41 years. He tore down the pagan altars. He removed cult prostitutes from the land. It says he was wholly devoted to the Lord all of his days. Not so much on the side of Israel. Nadab, the son of Jeroboam, became king in Israel. And like his father, it says he did evil in the sight of the Lord, and he led Israel into sin. But then Baasha conspired against Nadab and murdered him. Baasha became king, and he killed all of the remaining sons of Jeroboam so that he could be sure to be on the throne. Well, then Baasha died. His son Elah became king in Israel. But Zimri conspired against him and murdered the king while he was drunk. And he killed every one of his friends and all of his relatives so that he was sure that he would remain in that position. But after just 1 week, the people rebelled against Zimri, and they made Omri king. So Zimri's afraid, and he locks himself in the king's tower and sets it on fire to kill himself. Omri, it says, did more evil than all the kings before him. And when he died, his son Ahab became king, and Ahab was the worst of them all, even worse than his father Omri. He built a temple, it says, to the false god Baal. So God, in response, raises up the prophet Elijah. Now we know Elijah as a powerful man of God, but don't forget that James chapter 5 says that Elijah was just a normal guy like me or like you. It was God who did the work through Elijah powerfully to reveal himself to his people. Beginning of chapter 17, the Lord sends him to King Ahab to tell him that it's not going to rain until Elijah says it's going to rain. And that drought lasted for more than 3 years. Then the Lord says it's time to show the power of God against the weakness of Baal. He sends Elijah to tell Ahab to gather all of Israel, along with 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Asherah, to go to Mount Carmel, and let's see who really is God. Elijah says, the God who answers by consuming our sacrifice with fire from heaven, he is the one and true God. So the false prophets build their altar first, and they dance, and they scream, and they cut themselves, and they do whatever they need to do to try to convince Baal to send fire. But there's no answer. Then Elijah prays a simple prayer to the Lord, and immediately he consumed Elijah's altar with fire from above. And all of the people fell on their faces and declared, the Lord, he is the one true God. Then Elijah sent his servant to tell King Ahab, hey, you better hurry and get your chariot ready and go home because it's about to rain heavily. And it did. For decades, God patiently worked and waited, and at the right time, he revealed himself in the sight of everyone. The people knew that the Lord was God. Ahab knew that the Lord was God. And that's what the Lord wanted all along. His people continually throughout history rebelled against him, generation after generation of wicked, disobedient, idol-worshiping kings. But no matter how great the sin and rebellion of God's people got, his love and his persistent mercy were always greater.